Proof of work works,
Yeah.
right? We know it works. We know where it doesn't work. We know where it works, but it works, right? Bitcoin works. It works like magic,
Yeah.
right? Now, proof of stake is a big deal. Does it work? We're gonna find out, won't we?
Do me a favor, picture your favorite crypto app or exchange. Got it? Now I have 5 questions for you. Question number 1, does your favorite app or exchange have fiat on and off ramps that do not charge you crazy fees? Question number 2, does your app actually help you time your investments with machine learning and algorithms? Question number 3, does your app or favorite exchange connect to multiple exchanges to get you best rates, best liquidity, but also mitigate the risk of a central failure of one single order book? Question number 4, is your favorite app or exchange Swiss made, but also licensed and regulated in the EU so that you can feel 100% reassured, but also sleep well at night? Question number 5, is your favorite app or exchange fully aligned with your principles and values, 100% community-centric and not VC-backed? So if your answer to any of these questions is a no, what are you waiting for? Download the Swissborg Wealth app, join the new era of wealth management, and enjoy the ride. Dear crypto community and blockchain buddies across the globe, welcome back to Kryptonites, the no BS blockchain channel built with the community and for the community. And here's the season 3 finale with another mind-blowing guest. Ajit Tripathi worked for Consensus for Binance, someone who has extensive knowledge to share tons of goodies for you guys. Ajit, a pleasure to have you today. How are you doing, my friend?
Great to meet you, Alex. Having a great time.
Yes,
yeah, living the good life.
Living the good life. You know,
Living the
I've
good life.
seen you as a keynote speaker here in London. You've been giving amazing talks, educating people about the blockchains. You have such good experience, so I'm really excited about today's interview.
Pleasure, man. The pleasure is entirely mine. Thanks for inviting me, Alex.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Cheers.
I would love to ask you, Ajit, about your transition, right? So you were in the traditional world of finance, right?
Yeah,
You worked for
yeah.
some of the big banks, Goldman, and others, but all of a sudden you moved into the crypto space. Tell us your big why.
Yeah, so I mean, until 2009, 2010, the industry was doing really well, and I mean, investment banking was a little bit like crypto, right? So if you were on a trading floor doing quant and risk work, the technology was amazing. You could change a lot of things. You could build really, really cool things. So if you're a nerd and you really like building, I mean, it was really amazing, right, at Goldman. Now, and then I went into, and then this financial crisis hit, and then you went to work for another investment bank, and it was nothing like it was before. So it was boring, it was bureaucratic. I mean, you wanted to, you needed the money, but you wanted to kind of stop living after a while. And then I ended up in consulting, working for PwC. Absolutely amazing firm, yeah, don't get me wrong. But then my job was so boring. I really wanted to do something a little bit more interesting with my life. And there was this blockchain thing going around that nobody wanted to touch. So I pitched the idea of starting a little bit of a blockchain business, right, to some of the partners at PwC, and it took some time, but I think once I was lucky that the hype was just picking up at the time, and a lot of really important clients. Consulting is all about clients, right?
Yeah.
You really live to serve clients. Bank of England were interested, and UBS were interested, and a lot of really, really big banks wanted to talk about blockchain. They wanted to know what this thing is, because Blythe Masters and a whole bunch of people were really starting to talk to them about how this was going to change everything. And so I was kind of lucky to really start this whole talking to people about blockchain, and then suddenly lots of senior clients, this at CEO level were inviting this nobody, nothing director, while a lot of partners were wondering how come this kid is getting to talk to all the big guys and we are not. So they figured that there was something going on there, and there was a lot of interest in the community, and I mean especially amongst banks, right? Because this technology really started in financial services one way or the other. It started with the idea of changing how payments are done, how money moves around on the internet, and banks felt threatened by it, so they were really interested in knowing about it. And then sort of PwC figured that in the UK that it was about time to put in some money into this and really hire a few people. So that's how I really got into it, and also because nobody really wanted to do it, right? So it was the kind of thing people do on the dark web. And the fun part is that people who didn't know anything about blockchain technology knew about the dark web. So they thought blockchain was something to do with the dark web, and I was like, all right, no, wait, this got real applications. So I really started out in enterprise blockchain, not so much in crypto in the beginning. I did it because I was just bored out of my mind, and it worked out really well.
That sounds really good. And then if you fast forward a little bit, consensus, Ethereum.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ethereum is a massive topic from the early days. It's like, okay, Bitcoin has a smart contract now. It's more evolved. And it's still a huge topic, right? ETH 2.0 is, what was your experience like working with Consensus, Ethereum? Like, what were some of the successful things that you've seen?
Yeah, we had a great thing going, right? So I had a lot of good things going at PwC. We worked on VTrade, which is the world's first enterprise blockchain platform that went into production, right, with real customers, real banks. I have some really good stories. And then I met Joe. Joe was building out this little firm called Consensus in Luxembourg, and I gave him a piece of my mind. I was like, Joe, what the fuck are you doing? It kind of literally went like that, right? So it was like, Joe, whatever you're doing doesn't make any sense. I was wrong. He was right? I mean, that's just he kind of had this big vision about what he was doing. He saw a lot of things coming. And I was much more focused on this whole bank enterprise side of things because of where I worked. And Joe figured out that this was a bigger game, and this was about the internet. And I got into this crazy debate with Joe in Luxembourg, and I told him that whatever he was doing was effectively didn't make any sense, right? And so he kind of liked. So Joe is this Zen master kind of guy. He really liked what I had to say, and he thought there was a different perspective on this whole technology and everything. And then I met him at Consensus, and he was hiring anyone who was any good at this thing, right? So at that point, Consensus was really growing very fast, and he connected with me, and he was like, why don't you come on board? And I was very fortunate to be part of that team because, at the time, a lot of good developers, especially developers, right, wanted to go work for Consensus. A lot of good startups wanted to be part of Consensus venture ecosystem, mainly because Joe was such an inspirational, long horizon leader. He had this, and he was investing in complete moonshots, right? Yeah. So in true visionary things that were so different from anything that anyone in enterprise was doing. So that was really inspiring, to be honest, right? And it was great to be part of that ecosystem, and it felt inspiring, and it kind of drew a lot of energy and emotions out of you. You kind of believed in, and I still believe in a lot of what Joe is doing.
That's fantastic. So it was that the key component, because a lot of people talk about Ethereum's core advantage. Obviously, it's a first mover in terms of smart contracts, but on top of that, people say the backing in terms of the amount of engineers and developers. Was it Joe's vision and his personality that brought the engineers to come?
Not just Joe, in fact, right? So Ethereum was very lucky to have a lot of strong leaders, right? Vitalik,
Charles,
for example.
Vitalik,
Let's start with Vitalik. I mean, there was this developer guy who felt like a developer who was a developer that everybody could rally around. If you are a developer, and I spent most of my career being a developer before I got into sales and consulting, and if you were a developer, you looked at him and you're like, it was like the Mark Andreessen of our era, right? You looked at Vitalik and you were like, he's one of us. And developers rallied around him. Then Joe did something very, very interesting, right? Joe figured out, Joe's critical insight was that he figured out that two things were really required to make Ethereum work. One was infrastructure, right? So things like Infura, things like MetaMask, right? So the core components that made it possible for developers to interact with the blockchain. And the second thing was applications. So I mean, okay, you build the network. Let's say you have AT&T's phone lines, right? But if nobody's using, you don't have the end telephone, you don't have this, I mean, the smartphones, and you have all this wireless network, what is it worth? So Joe's genius wasn't really, and there were a lot of other good people, right? Gavin and so Ethereum was very lucky. Ethereum was, I have to be careful with that one. So I love Gavin, by the way. So so I think Ethereum was very lucky to have a lot of really strong personalities that didn't necessarily get along with each other, but had very different perspectives and contribution to the whole thing. And but I think Joe did a lot, right? Joe was instrumental in building a company, a community. He had this consistent messaging about this, making the world a better place. So, and it was really, really important when all the regulators and everyone was looking at this whole new technology with suspicion. And you had this Bitcoin community really getting excited about disrupting the banks and, revolution and fucking the system over. Joe was coming in with messages which were about, making the world a better place, making humanity a better place. So I think Joe's messaging, his marketing, his ability to really build a community and infrastructure was incredible. So Joe gets a lot of credit in my book.
So he kind of moved people, right? They felt aligned with his idea.
They felt like they wanted to be part of something bigger than them, right? A lot of great people want to do something that's bigger than them, and Joe made it all feel like it was bigger than any of us.
So that's incredible, and like you mentioned, you can see it on GitHub, right? The amount of contributions, the amount of, you can see the activity of Ethereum, and it just has more people involved thanks to great leadership, like you're saying.
Great leadership all around, yeah.
Right, but nowadays, so this year, there's a lot of criticism and skepticism, I would say, with regards to ETH 2.0. Like for example, we have Cardano has suddenly come up, from the woods, out of the woods. And a lot of people are kind of saying that ETH 2.0 is going to be a very, very difficult transition, and very concerned, especially the geeks, obviously, are saying that it's not feasible. How are you seeing this? Do you still have hope for ETH 2.0?
Yeah, I don't want to be expelled from Ethereum, right? So I'm already working with R3 on some of their startups, so that doesn't make me any popular. So, I mean, the way I see it is, remember Netscape?
Yeah.
Right? Netscape had over 80% of the market share at one point, and it felt like Netscape was unbeatable and nobody could touch it, right? And that sort of arrogance set into the Netscape community and whatnot. And I mean, Ethereum isn't quite there, but now I see developers. So Ethereum's power is in developers, right? I mean, and nobody has really offered anything that's, there have been lots of Ethereum killers, right? Charles is an incredibly smart guy. There are lots of really, Tezos founders are really smart people. But nobody's got the mix right? And it's not just one thing. So Ethereum offered something compelling and something completely different from what Bitcoin had to offer. Nobody has really given something that's compelling enough and different enough. It's got to be different, right? It's got to have something more than what Ethereum has to offer. So now so that's the first thing, right? So Ethereum added smart contracts. That was a powerful new feature. Bitcoin was open to only so many developers. It wasn't, you had to be a really, really good protocol developer to work on Bitcoin. But you could be a pretty decent application developer. You could write pretty shitty Solidity code and still come up with yams, right? I mean, people are still doing that and making a lot of money. So Ethereum made it possible for, like Java, right? Ethereum was like Java. I mean, it made it possible for bad developers or average developers to do something with this really new powerful platform. And nobody has really made a dent in that. Now, Ethereum 2.0 is interesting, right? Because if you look at Avalanche, if you look at, everyone is saying, oh, Ethereum only does 12 transactions a second, whatnot. Does anyone really care? Right? It's not, now with Ethereum 2.0, I think that the trouble is the expectations have been set very, very high, right? And I worked with Vlad Zamfir on CBC Casper very recently on some of the grants and some of the other commercial aspects. And Vlad has lots and lots of great ideas. Ethereum 2.0 is a compromise compared to where Ethereum is going to be.
Really?
Yeah. Ethereum 2.0 is a practical compromise, right? So if you really want to do correct by construction Casper, and if you really want to do Ethereum as it can be, then it's going to take a long time, right? So you want you eventually want to get rid of solidity. You want to have WebAssembly. You want to have a much more robust programming environment. You want to have better tools, and so on. So Ethereum 2.0 has a long roadmap. It's an incredibly hard coordination problem to get everyone from Ethereum 1.0 to 2.0, and because it's so decentralized, it literally is decentralized. You can't have Vitalik saying, oh, we need to deliver tomorrow, or Joe delivers. So it's a really hard coordination problem. Now, if Ethereum 2.0 will have some issues, right? So you will have very high gas fees on some of the shards that are more used than the others. You will have some UX issues because there is imperfect load balancing on different shards. So do I see any of the protocols solving all of those issues right now? I don't really see anyone else solving those issues, right? And then the question is, what do developers care about? Do developers really care about any of this? And don't forget the network effects, right? So what Netscape didn't have is network effects. You had a Netscape server, you had a Netscape browser, but you could easily switch. Microsoft started giving the internet information server IIS for free, and that's really what hurt Netscape, right? Not just the browser. The bundling of the browser came later. So with Ethereum, the value is that you're on Ethereum, the other guy is also on Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
So you have this a little bit of this community, but also network effects, right? The users know how to work with Ethereum, the developers know how, and all the other developers know how to work with Ethereum. So who's going to disrupt that? I think it's a harder problem than it seems, and it's not just about throughput. But who has got a good chance? I think if I had to put my money on something, I would put my money on Gavin. He knows exactly what he's doing, right? So Polkadot is if anyone can win right now, I would put my money on Polkadot. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyways.
I wanted to ask you exactly about that, because it's kind of like the battle of the blockchains now. A lot of people are wondering because they're the third gen, blockchains. We have Cardano, we have Elrond, we have, you mentioned Polkadot, Kusama. There are quite a lot of players coming into the play. And and that's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you next. Among all these potential blockchains, obviously Ethereum has the engineers. It also has the adoption, like use cases, right? Many people are building.
It's got a whole ecosystem. It's got
a
tools,
whole ecosystem.
And Joe built a lot of those tools, right?
Yeah,
At
exactly.
Consensus built MetaMask and Infura and God knows what else.
So you can have the fastest, the most scalable blockchain, the highest throughput throughout the entire ecosystem. But if nobody uses it, then it's worthless, right?
Yeah, you got to have people building apps on it.
You got to have people building it, and that without a doubt, Ethereum is the master, as you said. But what is your overall impression? Because Gavin seems like the perfect story, for Polkadot uprising. He's seen Ethereum. He's very active on GitHub when it comes to Polkadot. How are you seeing this playing out?
I think Polkadot has a lot of good ideas, right? I think Gavin knows Ethereum on the inside. He's seen the evolution. He's been part of the whole story. He's seen what's worked and what didn't work. So with Polkadot, he's systematically building a community, right? So if you go back to Joe's speech at DevCon last year, he talked about community, right? The one thing that he emphasized was the ecosystem. He said, it's not the killer technology, it's the killer ecosystem. So Gavin is going quite systematically, and forget the tech. The tech is great, but he's going quite systematically about building a community, about this whole marketing aspect. Right, so Ethereum is the incumbent, right? So it's like you have to disrupt Ethereum, like Ethereum started to disrupt Bitcoin in certain ways, right? And we were looking at serious flippening at one point before the whole market crashed. So you have to disrupt this incumbent, right? How are you going to do that? You can't do it by playing the same game as the incumbent. So you have to play a completely different game. I don't think Polkadot have figured that out yet, right? So if you look at how they're building the community and how kind of they're slowly, carefully, methodically sort of getting the message out and getting developers involved, but what they haven't spoken to yet, Gavin hasn't spoken to yet, is what's really, really different, right? So but one thing he's doing right is he's focusing on developers, right? He's not worried about anything else right now. So if you look at how they're building the community, then it's all about the devs. And that's what Ethereum got right. That's what Apple got right. That's what Microsoft got right. And I was a Microsoft developer after I worked on Unix. It's all about getting apps built. And I think the question is, who has the patience to hang in there for 5 years 3 to 5 years and really fight the battle. And then, Ethereum 2.0 isn't the last thing. I mean, Ethereum will build a 3.0 and a 4.0. And what worries me about Ethereum is that, there are lots and lots of bright people who are in it for the technology. Those are the ones I would bet on. But there's a lot of stuff that's really concerning.
Different people with different motives.
Yeah. There are a lot of things I worry about. And Ethereum 2.0 isn't it. I worry about somebody writing another $1 billion smart contract and getting a lot of ETH stuck in it, but that would really undermine
That.
If we have another hard fork, that would hurt.
That would hurt, yeah. You know what? The hard forks are obviously not a beautiful picture, and also that kind of is a perfect segue for DeFi, and its impact on Ethereum as well.
Yeah.
And I'd love to ask you about that. But it does sound like Gavin is kind of taking a few lessons from the book of Joe Lubin and building community.
Yeah.
Is that really the most important thing when building a blockchain, is to getting these devs on board, making them believe the vision?
I think it's like building any other startup, right? You have to learn.
Yeah.
So what Polkadot are doing right is that they're learning. So if you look at some of the other competitors, so there are lots of good tech in the space, but they haven't spent enough time learning. They've got hung up on one thing, right? Or they have overpromised. They promised the perfect solution.
Yeah.
Like Definity. I mean, great team, really, really smart tech people, but they have promised Nirvana. You shouldn't promise Nirvana as a startup, because you don't know what it's like, right? So what Polkadot are doing right is they're learning. Right? And by the way, I don't own any Polkadot right now. I would like to, but So they're kind of taking their time to learn and really iterate and figure it out. When I went to DevCon 1, I mean, you met these guys, you shook hands, and I was arguing with Joe a year later or 2 years later, and you kind of didn't know it was going to get this big, right? So with Polkadot, I think what they're doing is they're taking their time, they're learning, they're figuring out what works, and none of the other blockchains have done that, right? They've got hung up on one idea, and so or throughput.
Throughput, yeah.
Does anyone care? We don't know, right? I mean, how do you know? Are you learning? Are you measuring anything out there? Are you actually tracking your success? So, with Tezos, they said, we have these great technical ideas. We have a formally verifiable language. Now, developers look at that and they go, okay, so, right? So I think it's about the learning process, and Ethereum did that right. They took their time to learn. They made a lot of mistakes, and Joe specifically invested in a lot of mistakes, right? So Joe put in a lot of his personal money in making a lot of mistakes, and that's what really, really is so inspiring about that story. That with Polkadot, I think they're taking it slow, they're learning. Are they the last word on blockchain? Nobody is the last word on blockchain. We are so early. Now DeFi, Ethereum lives on applications. Like iPhones live on apps. You don't have apps, you don't have iPhones. So Ethereum might have its problems, but if it doesn't have apps, it's got nothing, right? For apps, you need devs. So ICO, we knew it was going to be problematic. There were going to be lots of legal, regulatory challenges, whatnot. But it was an application that consumers wanted. DeFi is an application that gets people excited. And I mean like consumers, right? And traders and a whole bunch of people who are not in it for the technology gets excited. So DeFi is kind of the next logical step. Were ICOs really risky? Yes, absolutely. Once the EOS sell-off started, Ethereum had to crash, right? And I had too much of my net worth in it, so I feel the pain. So now with DeFi, it's the same story. Is there a lot of risk in it? Sure, but if Ethereum doesn't make those mistakes or doesn't take the same kind of risk, it's not going to evolve. And the way this thing works is, right, once you build better apps, the technology has to evolve to meet where the apps are, right? So Ethereum 2.0 is required because gas prices are so shit, right? Because it's so painful to use that thing right now. That's why we are spending so much time and energy on getting Ethereum 2.0 done, right? Whether it's consensus or anyone else. If you don't have apps, what's forcing the technology to evolve? Why do you even need better Macs, better Windows, better phones, if you don't have any more apps that demand better network, better infrastructure? So Ethereum has got something right about it, right? So we'll go through a lot of pain, we'll go through a lot of crashes, we'll crash and burn once in a while, but the power of Ethereum is it's a free for all. I mean, it evolves really, really quickly. I just hope that some of the really cool guys like Ben and the guys who are really working on the core protocols just can stay focused through the next 4 or 5 months and not fuck it up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And because when you think about the gas fees, right, and the network fees and kind of the complaints that we have recently, like, if I really pictured, tell me if I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like I see Ethereum, like if your Ethereum was a big shopping mall, right? I do see these apps like little shops within the shopping mall. But the problem for me is that Ethereum doesn't own these shops. They're using the platform, but they could migrate eventually to another blockchain.
Yeah,
are you concerned about that? Like
no. I mean, Ethereum is not the Lord's last word on blockchain. It shouldn't be, right? I mean, I don't own Ethereum. It's not my company. It's nobody's company. That's the good news, right? So think about it this way. Ethereum's success is its biggest problem, right? I mean, nobody's complaining about network fees or miner fees on Tezos, right? I mean, great tech, but nobody's complaining about it because people aren't using it. Nobody's complaining about the fees on EOS because nobody's using it. So Ethereum's success is its problem. Is that a good problem? Absolutely, right? So think about it this way. So I used to work for a telecoms firm back in 1999, and we started getting a bunch of call drops. Right? That's a really bad thing in telecoms, right? You don't want to have dropped calls because customers complain, your customers complain, and you lose money, right? And you sometimes might get sued. So, but is that success? Absolutely. You want to have more utilization. If you build something, you want people to use it. So is DeFi a good problem to have? It's a brilliant problem to have, right? Now I just hope it inspires the devs to build better infrastructure to meet the needs of the awesome, weird shit we're building on this. It's just so beautiful. I mean, it doesn't appeal to the I mean, look, I'm relatively old for this job, right? It's a 24-year-old's world and I'm 44. But I love this stuff. I mean, it's like the internet all over again. It's like being in 97 when I was 21 and all this shit was going around, and we're back to the same thing. I mean, it's like dial-ups all over again, and it's really painful. It's buffering. But that's what forces people to build better internet. Right? That's what's going on. And if you call it Ethereum, great. If you call it Polkadot, great. But somebody's got to build better
Somebody's
tech.
got to build it. Yeah,
that's really the beauty of it.
But that's a really good point. The success is also a failure, but it's better to have that success because the gas fees are costly because so many people are using it, while other blockchains don't have the same adoption and usage.
That's right. Yeah, my rent goes up. Is that a good problem or a bad problem? I don't know. Man. I'm going to take it. I mean, I'm getting call drops. I'll take it. My site is down because everyone is using it. Yeah, sure, I'll take it.
That's a really good point. And I'd love to ask you, a little bit earlier, we're talking about Uniswap and some of the specific examples that you find fascinating in terms of, this whole DeFi movement. Obviously, there are a lot of scams. There are a lot of, projects that'll go to zero that don't really have much value, but there are some incredible things like Uniswap, right?
Unbelievable. And so there are lots of great projects in that space. Right, and so I've known Stani in Switzerland for 4 years now. I think 3 to 4 years, and he's built a really, really cool app.
Aave,
you look at the user interface on Aave, and it's absolutely beautiful, right?
Beautiful,
it feels like a bank. I mean, like it feels better than a bank. It doesn't feel anything like a. I mean, when I download in 2015, when I was installing Ethereum and starting to write smart contracts, it was incredibly painful. I couldn't build that thing. Right now, you see these beautiful interfaces like Uniswap and Aave and whatnot, and you say, "Wow! I mean, this makes me cry. This is how it's supposed to be."
Yeah.
My grandma shouldn't have to worry about solidity. I mean, she doesn't worry about how Google runs their servers and their cloud. She just sees a text box. She searches. She sees some output, and she sees some ads. That's where we got to take this tech. The infrastructure, the network. All of the beauty that goes into switching and SS7 and all these cool protocols, 5G and stuff. That's for us nerds. It's not for grandma. So I think we have. So what I'm seeing with the Ethereum this year is this evolution of the UX, right? MetaMask went on mobile yesterday. MetaMask, it's absolutely beautiful.
It's great.
It's just beautiful.
It's awesome.
So now Aave is beautiful. Some of the copy and paste DeFi is also beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely horrible and beautiful at the same time. So Wi-Fi is pretty cool.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is really cool.
So there are lots of interesting ideas in there, and things I'll be very honest. There's stuff I don't understand. I don't understand being a YouTube influencer, and I don't understand being a yield farmer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm learning a lot about it, but it doesn't come naturally. So, but it's not for me. It's for this people, for a set of people. So I grew up, right? I have a story. So, when you were 21 and you were watching videos, and let's call them videos on the internet back in '97 and '98, you dialed up and you buffered.
Yeah.
You watched a scene and you buffered. And then Netflix had to ship DVDs, right?
Yeah.
So in 1999 and 2000, I think I'm getting the years probably right. And we kind of knew where this was going, right? I mean, with Ethereum also, we kind of know where this technology is going to go, right? We just don't know how it's going to get there, what sort of engineering achievements, what sort of computer science has to happen to get there. But we know where it needs to go. I mean, this whole story has always been about the internet. Mark Andreessen and A16Z have been investing heavily purely on that basis. So DeFi is part of that story, which is if we had to build a whole new set of applications which are kind of different, right? So the internet never had money. If you ask Mark Andreessen on his podcast, then he would say there are two things he didn't get right. One is he didn't get a sense of identity on the browsers. Right, so if I'm using Netscape, I might be a dog, and there is a joke about that. So there is no identity on the internet. And the second thing that's not on the internet is money. It would have been blocked by the banks, and it would have been shut down by the regulators. PayPal got it more or less. With Ethereum and Bitcoin, we kind of know where we need this to go. We need to move a whole bunch of other stuff on the internet that's not there yet, right? We need to move identity on the internet, and we need to move money on the internet. That's what we are all playing for, because then a whole new system opens up. Now, how it's going to get there, look, I may not be around, right? But that's the only way this has got to go.
Yeah, it's really cool. If we have digital identity, then the ownership of our own data, it just leads to so many opportunities, right?
Yeah,
I think digital ID
it's a game changer, right? I mean, it just suddenly gets serious. It's no longer about watching videos and whatnot. It's about and lots of people are working on different approaches, right? So, the former co-founder of Ripple, what's his name, the CTO, Steve Thomas. Yeah, he's building Coil, which is a very interesting protocol. Ethereum is obviously the OG, but who knows? Still so early. But I think everyone is pretty clear where this needs to go, and the vision is still the same as Bitcoin. The technology keeps evolving. It needs to evolve a lot faster. Yeah, we might have to pay for it. People had to pay for airplanes. Some people died building that. It's just sad. But if nobody had died, we wouldn't be flying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. And obviously, so one last question I wanted to ask you. So we talked about Ethereum, about Polkadot. You also worked with Binance. And Binance has announced that they're going to move to proof of stake with staking opportunities with BNB. ACE 2.0 is also about staking. Cardano is going to be about staking. It almost seems like, from DeFi, like next year's proof of stake is going to be the biggest topic in 2021. Is it the biggest topic? Yeah.
Proof of stake is huge, right? Now, proof of work works.
Yeah.
Right? We know it works. We know where it doesn't work. We know where it works, but it works, right? Bitcoin works. It's boring, but it works. It works like magic, right? Now, Ethereum breaks a lot, but it works. Proof of stake is a big deal. Does it work? We're going to find out, won't we? So, and we don't know under what circumstances. We haven't got a simulation where we can say, there's a lot of theory around it. You can read papers about CBC Casper and other protocols and whatnot. There's a lot of distributed computing math and theory that's been done. But it'll be really nice to see how it works in the wild, right? So we haven't had with proof of work, we've had hard forks, we've had all these economic and social experiments, like Bitcoin, all the forks of Bitcoin, Craig Wright's Bitcoin and everybody else's Bitcoin. We've had Ethereum Classic and the DAO. We're going to have to learn as we go along. So, we don't know where it fails because Tezos have done a pretty good job, but nobody's really used proof of stake at scale yet. And it's not just one thing, right? There's a lot of customization, configuration. There's lots of parameters into different proof of stake protocols. So there's a lot of math to it. We're going to have to figure this out as we go along.
So yeah, are you looking forward to that? Is that the ultimate challenge for 2021? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to lose some money doing that, won't we? We're all going to lose some money. That's just how we got into this. So yeah, but it's really good to be part of this, right? It's like just continuing on from 1997 and 1999, and Netflix and Google and whatnot, and just seeing this whole new generation of technologies come around, and when you're my age, you're like this 44-year-old guy in a 24-year-old's world. That's the only thing that makes you feel so young. It's like, I'm still part of this fringe thing. Okay, I mean, I've spent my life selling blockchain and crypto to banks, right? And it's a lifestyle choice. It's not that much fun sometimes, but it's great, right? So, but I take the new world to the old world. That's what I do. Now, but it really feels great to be part of this incredibly imaginative, creative, young crowd that's got so many dreams and ideas. Yeah, there is a lot of shit that goes around too, but that's just bathwater with the baby. I mean, the good stuff is all in this massive creativity and evolution that's happening at this crazy rate. And I've seen this story before. I'm just so grateful to be part of this all over again, even just to be watching it.
Same here. I feel so grateful. I feel like this is the chance of a lifetime for us. There won't be so many financial revolutions, or
we're all going to be dead, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we might as well be part of
best.
something that's
that's
fun. Right?
I think that's exactly why people should get more involved. Thank you so much, Ajit,
for
the amazing insights today. If people want to follow you, so you're active on Twitter.
I'm a little bit too active on Twitter on Chain Yoda, and I'm also quite active on Breaking Banks Europe podcast and Breaking Banks, where I'm a crypto co-host. So I cover all the emerging technology topics for the Breaking Banks podcast, and I'm a Chain Yoda on Twitter. Great to meet.
Awesome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you.
Pleasure.
And you guys heard it from somebody who actually worked with Consensus, worked with Binance, who's been seeing this from an internal perspective, which is really interesting, right? Because it's not just understanding about the technology, it's understanding the culture, the leadership that we talked about, people who actually inspire engineers to come and want to work and build on top of it, other applications wanting to build on top of it as well. So hopefully you guys have different perspectives on how to evaluate and judge blockchains and who will be, obviously there'll be multiple, but who will be the big blockchains in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and blast that bell notification so that you can get access to all these timeless interviews. Thank you so much. Premiering at a PC near you every Wednesday, 8 o'clock UK time. Take care, guys.